Welcome to Providence, Rhode Island. Home to 190,000 people, the capital of Rhode Island, the nation's smallest state, has been on the rise for decades after falling from its high point of over 250,000 in 1940 down to 156,000 in 1980 due to urban renewal. The historic city is home to Brown University, as well as one of America's oldest urban cores, featuring some beautiful classical buildings, and was very much the victim of a brutal urban renewal campaign. However, it has done quite a lot in the last few decades to bounce back. But let's take a look at some of the destruction that took place, just to get an idea of the situation Providence had put itself in. While that was very depressing, thankfully, Providence has since had a development spree in its downtown core. If you look at this map, in blue is every recently completed project just from the past few years, which as you can see is a lot. And of course, that doesn't cover the freeway removal project that was undertaken in 2009 that moved I-95 southwards, reuniting the divided parts of downtown following the original construction of the highway in the late 1950s. Let's now go through the newer buildings over the past decade or so before we dive into the projects that will be coming in the near future, and we'll be sticking to the downtown only, just because that's where most of the urbanist development actually is, and because I don't want this video to drag on too long, although there are other neighborhoods such as College Hill, Wayland, and Federal Hill, which are also seeing quite a bit of redevelopment. And by the way, if you want to have a look at the interactive map where I'm sourcing all this information from, I'll leave it in the link below. Alright, let's get it going. Starting with the northern part of downtown, around the Rhode Island State House, and right next to the train station, is the Commons at Providence Station, with 169 residential units atop of what was just vacant land, which very nicely goes along the Moshassuck River, adding some necessary enclosure to this area. Also on the same canal is the mixed-use 202-unit, 15-story, 169 Canal Street, replacing what was just a surface parking lot. Near there, but this time along the Woonasquatucket River, is the Homewood Suites, a 120-room hotel, which replaced what was vacant land for literally decades. A bit north from there, this historic duplex, which is quite beautiful, but a bit out of place in this part of the city, will be replaced by a mixed-use, 20-unit building that at the very least incorporates some classical principles, and will make for much more efficient land use. Let's now get into Central Providence, which is seeing a host of renovations and adaptive reuses of historical buildings to make them fit for modern commercial and residential needs, without having to tear down any classical beauty, which is a really great thing to see happening at such a scale. But there's also some new construction as well. First, we have the Nightingale, which is a mixed-use, 143-unit apartment building that replaces massive service parking lot, and I actually really appreciate the facade on this building for actually fitting in pretty nicely into downtown Providence. Definitely a massive upgrade. Across the street from there, replacing the super ugly brutalist mess, is this 168-room Marriott Hotel with ground floor retail space. I know I called out Marriott in my last video, but this one is actually relatively decent. Let's now look into the southern part of downtown, where the former I-95 elevated section used to run through, and is where so much development has and will continue to take place, as the freeway removal opened up tons of land right next to the heart of downtown Providence, as well as riverfront property along the east side of the Providence River. And so to start, we have the Chestnut Commons, a mixed-use 89-unit building that sits right where the highway used to run. Across the street is the much more impressive Emblem 125 building that also is mixed-use and has 248 residential units, and I must say, with a significantly better design. These two projects across the street from one another makes for a pretty cool before and after, as it's just crazy to see what we can have instead of a highway. Continuing along the stretch, we have the new parking garage, which, while it is just a parking garage, will hopefully fulfill that particular demand and lead to the surface parking lots nearby being developed. Still on the former I-95 corridor, there is the Aloft Hotel with its 170 rooms, replacing this stretch of the former highway. And on the same block, we have the Wexford Innovation Center, which is labs and offices, which I think is a great way of attracting residents to the city and preventing population decline, which has become a common phenomenon in the Northeast. Elsewhere on Hospital Street, replacing this industrial building and its parking lot, is this super modern 20-unit apartment building. I'm not really a fan of this design at all, but it's at least better land use than before. And then over on the riverfront, on the site of the former South Street Power Station, is a couple of new projects. One is the adaptive reuse of the power station building into a nursing education center, which I think is a really great way of using former urban industrial spaces for modern day needs. And in the former parking lot of the power plant is the mixed-use 174-unit River House Apartments that comes with a pretty nice riverfront walkway. Across the Providence River, back on the I-95 corridor that used to go through prime riverfront property, are some new projects. There's the mixed-use 125 Wigginton Street, which comes with 49 residential units, office space, retail, and a Trader Joe's. Across the street from there, also on the I-95 corridor, and combined with the previous project, is forming the foundations of a new riverfront neighborhood on the east side of the Providence River, is a 69 residential unit apartment building. Near there is actually another new apartment building, Tempo, this time with 66 residential units, as well as ground floor retail, and once again, right where the I-95 once was. I hope this is showing you all just how much can be built where our urban highways currently take space. And Providence has only just begun when it comes to this, because as you're about to see, there is still so much more empty land for the city to work with. And I also really appreciate that they're using the land to actually expand their city and reconnect these neighborhoods by literally having rebuilt the former street grid and encouraging organic development. This is what the Big Dig in Boston should have been, rather than just a wide boulevard with a park in it. Sure, it's better than an elevated highway, but the scar of urban renewal still remains. So let's look at the new construction happening in this part of Providence. First, we have the Rhode Island State Laboratories and Center for Life Sciences, right next to the Wexford Innovation Center, which together should make for a pretty great job center for Providence. Across the street in District Park, along the Providence Riverfront, will be a new park pavilion which, in addition to park services, will also have numerous food and beverage concessions, which is a great way of attracting families into this rapidly developing urban neighborhood. Right next to the park is the 200 Dyer parcelet that currently has a dinky industrial building in its massive parking lot. And this is meant to gradually become a series of mixed-use apartment and office buildings. But as of now, only the first one is planned, that being a 12-story, 214-unit apartment complex that directly faces the riverfront. From there, we also have the construction of a life sciences laboratory complex, which will be a part of Brown University in place of most of this block that consists of surface parking and lowly old lab buildings, and will also come with lots of public plaza space, which is a pretty cool thing to see. We also have, replacing this industrial building, a mixed-use 191-unit apartment building, 33 Bassett Street. Even across the Providence River are 5 upcoming projects, all along the former I-95 corridor. The first is Tandem, a 61-unit apartment building that will be right next door to Tempo. And then, next to that Trader Joe's and those 2 mixed-use complexes, will be another mixed-use project that will contain 114 residential units, ground floor retail, and corporate office space, rounding out the development of these 2 blocks. As for the block just north of it, will be the Providence Art and Design Center, which will contain 175 residential units and lots of retail space, and this will be directly facing the waterfront. Though the coolest feature of this project will actually be its inner pedestrian street, and is meant to be a creative workforce destination. While this isn't the type of architecture I encourage on this channel, I do at least appreciate the public space that this project will be creating for the city. And then, on the block north of that, will be this 171 residential unit mixed-use apartment complex divided between 2 buildings that will be separated by a large public plaza. Once again, between this and the last project, it's just crazy that this was just car infrastructure for decades, and now this land is being used to completely redefine Providence and create an entire built-up riverfront from scratch. But there's still one more riverfront project to cover, that being 275 South Water Street, which will enhance the stretch of the old waterfront that was just this bit of grass and a crappy sculpture to a 10-unit condo building with ground floor retail space and a new and elaborate pedestrian waterfront space. And with all that, as you can see, downtown Providence has gone through and will continue to go through a lot of positive transformation. And while a lot of these buildings have kind of ugly modernist designs, this is still just such a huge win for the New England city. land that was formerly highways, parking lots, and single-use industrial buildings resembling the decrepit and hollow state of American city centers post-urban renewal, will now be the site of thriving neighborhoods that actively make the city a better place to live, and all the while helping to minimize continued urban sprawl. It's pretty incredible just how much a city center can effectively change in a relatively quick span of time once those highways are moved out of the way. And Providence should become the new face of such projects going forward, serving as the benchmark for cities all across the country that are in dire need to remove their own destructive highways. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time. And now a shout out to my incredible supporters on Patreon: Sven Weisbrod, Grandpa Allen, Ja Baptista, Ruben Hansen, Cameron Dennis, James Whale, Michael Goldman, Ulysses Arnold, Joseph, Roach, Eric Martz, Fortunate Calf, VJ Mari, Jerome Frolich, and my dad.